Good morning. Let me try my hand at this protocol thing. Secretary Jack and Mrs. Jack, Mr. Kelvin Charles, the presiding officer. Is that the junior minister? No? Minister Ayanna Webster Roy, minister in the office of the Prime Minister. I presume there are other secretaries? Right, Miss Dr. Sawyerfat Angus and Miss, I'm not seeing Miss Tracy Davidson Celestin. She left, okay. Other administrators who might be in our presence, my fellow presenters, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media. Is it still morning? Good morning. Presentation. My name is Bernard Mitchell from E-IDCOT, Eco-Industrial Development Company of Tobago, and I'm here to share with you the role that E-IDCOT is playing as far as economic development in Tobago is concerned. So to give it a bit of context, E-IDCOT was formed by the THA in about 2009 to oversee the development of the COVE industrial estate and as the primary vehicle for economic diversification in Tobago. So what I'll be sharing basically is the work that we've done in that space and some of the other things we plan to do going forward. So I want to start off with a little question. Let's say you're a business entity that is in operation and you've exhausted your domestic market and you decide you want to locate to another country to establish operations and pursue your business activity. What is the criteria you're going to use to determine which country you're going to locate in? Right? You have Barbados, you have Jamaica, you have Costa Rica, Panama, Dominican Republic. What is the criteria? They have to answer? No, it's rhetorical. Yeah. And basically, there are about 10 things that companies look at. But by and large, there are 4 that always presented themselves. Am I going to get a slide change? Yes, I'm not seeing. Next slide. This is my sidekick here. So he's not kicking right now. Right, so the key factors for investors would be right, the size and growth of the potential domestic market if you want to locate in another country. The proximity to desired markets, right, is a market that I'm going to target, basically. Do I have the access to that market through either trade agreements or cost of travel to sell my goods? The investment climate within that country, right, the ease of doing business, the type of incentives they have, how does it impact either my bottom line or my top line? And additionally, the availability of a skilled or trainable workforce to support my business operations. These factors are critical to Tobago also, because as we pursue economic diversification, on the one hand, we are talking about developing the indigenous capital and the indigenous base in terms of business, but also you want to target the foreign direct investment because that's where you're going to get the step change as far as economic development is concerned. So those 4 factors that we presented before are critical, as well as other factors which are not so important for many of the countries, or the companies. But in the case of Tobago, the issue of the container port becomes a critical one when we are dealing especially with foreign manufacturers in terms of the ease of bringing in raw material and getting their finished goods out. The ICT infrastructure is also critical to many of them who are tackling the development of the ICT sector. Both the robustness of the domestic ICT infrastructure, but international connectivity as far as ICT is concerned. And then in terms of input factors, to what extent can I get most or all of my raw material to allow me to drive the economies of scale to be competitive when I start to compete internationally. So these are critical factors that Tobago face in terms of its economic development. So in that space, we have to execute, right? And what we've done so far is recognize that on a value proposition basis, we do have some gaps. But it's not a case for packing up and going home. The question is, how do we execute? How do we find a space in that international global village so that we could achieve our objectives? So what we've done thus far, our friend from Venture Capital, Mr. Pierre, identified a number of sectors that we'll be focusing on. And in tandem with the venture capital and other entities in Tobago like the BDO and so on, we have decided that if we have a few sectors that we are going to be focusing on. The point is, we can't boil the ocean. You have limited resources, so you need to target how you apply these resources. We have to leverage our national and local attributes. When we say national, we're talking about from a national standpoint, the low cost of energy, the fact that we have free zone status and that we could offer to companies, things that would help them, like their corporate tax regimes and so on that would be waived, depending on the nature of the business you establish and the extent to which they are export-oriented. Additionally, in the Tobago environment, notwithstanding what applies on a Trinidad standpoint, you want to create your own indigenous incentives. To what extent can we offer companies coming to Tobago unique things that may not be available from a Trinidad standpoint? It's important that we create momentum. We aren't going to get overnight a load of foreign direct investment coming into Tobago. But you have to create that space and that momentum so that people see that things are happening and it influences them to come and locate. And the whole issue of creating momentum is the recognition that this issue of economic development and diversification is not a sprint. I think one of the previous callers made that point, right? It may very well be a half marathon to a marathon, depending on the global dynamics. So not everything is going to be working in your favor from day one. So we need to recognize that. And it's also about managing expectations, right? People come to you and say, you all running this school for 6 years, what's happening down here? Things are happening, but it takes time, and we need to manage people's expectations as far as that is concerned. Also, they need to be export-oriented. The size of the Tobago market is not one that gives you the type of economies of scale to make you competitively advantageous or comparatively advantageous. We need to do things that allows us to compete internationally, but by targeting foreign markets. Right, so some of the things we've been doing, focusing on light niche manufacturing. We've also focused on the service sector. Right, we're focusing in the Tobago environment. Again, my friend from Venture Capital spoke about some of the companies they have invested in and are targeting for investment. We are also working in conjunction with them, so I'm not going to repeat those things. Where the foreign direct investment is concerned, we need to recognize that nobody is going to give us anything for free. So if you compete head-on, right, because if you look at Tobago and the COVE, we are lightweight, and we're into the heavyweight division, right? So you have to bob and move and punch, right? You can't stand up because you're going to get knocked down, right? So the issue is, how do we target that foreign market such that we are able to make a difference? And that's where the diaspora comes in. You want to appeal to the patriotism of the people outside there. You want to appeal to the sentimental dimension, which is say, that is my home country. I want to give back something to them rather than give it to another country like Panama or Costa Rica. So you want to tap into that sentimental, emotional dimension where potential investment is concerned. And in the process, we continue to work on closing the value proposition gaps. So we talked about ICT infrastructure, we talked about container port and so on. We are also working assiduously to make sure that the things we are doing influences those things to happen. So, key point at this point in time, yes, we are open for business. Right? And by saying that, at present, the infrastructure at the COVE is fully complete. We have service property, all the roads, drains, water, electricity is available for any prospective investor. We've completed 2 factory shells, and as both the Secretary of Finance and the Chief Sec mentioned this morning, we're in the process of completing 2 multi-producer units to focus on serving our agro-processors. And at present, we are 40% complete in deploying a fiber optic infrastructure to support especially the ICT sector development, but general high-quality communications for any tenant who decides to locate at the park. We have 2 active tenants in metal fabrication and woodworking. We have 3 committed tenants. These are companies that have signed, executed leases and are in the process of becoming active on the park. And we're in the process of sealing, as they will say, 3 more deals as far as new tenancy on the park is concerned. So I'm putting out there that by March of next year, we'll have at least 8 active tenants at the COVE in operation. The point was also made this morning that we have embarked on an initiative to develop the animation industry. And we have ongoing interest, I should mention that. And that animation industry is our sort of segue into developing the overall ICT sector in Tobago. Yes, we have the communication service providers, and they are about their own thing. But what are we going to do in terms of the development of the sector to make it more commercialized? And that's where the whole issue of the animation trust is concerned. But apart from that, to support the whole issue of entrepreneurship and innovation and so on, we're also embarking on a data center strategy. Right? And to support me this morning as far as where data center on a global level is and what we are seeking to do, I have with me my sidekick, Mr. Thomas Meharetz. He's from the company EMC Squared, right, Professor? That was E equal EMC Squared, right? That was one of those bright fellows who developed that, right? And EMC Squared is one of the largest storage technology companies in the US. And they'll be working in conjunction with us to get the whole issue of a data center deployed in Tobago. And the key point really is, some of you might say this is a technology thing, it doesn't matter to me, but the fact of the matter is all of us have information, all of us have data, all of us need to share it, protect it, store it and protect it. And that is why we feel that this initiative is going to be critical, not just for the COVE and Tobago, but all of you on an individual basis. So allow me to introduce Thomas to share with you an international perspective on data centers.